Hi and welcome to LED lighting product training series. This one is part 4 and welcome and congratulations on finishing all the other parts and the general knowledge if you've done it. So my name's Wayne Crooks. I am the technical support officer for Emelec and I've put together all of this training and things like that to help you guys out there understand LED strip, LED lighting, power supplies, controllers, and everything to make sure you're confident when you're talking to your customers. That's what it's really all about. So let's get started. Okay, in this one, we're designing an installation. So if you've followed everything through from part 1 to now, you'll understand that we've gone through all the componentry, we've gone through LED strip. You know, voltage drop's a big issue. We'll always talk about voltage drop because it's one of the biggest issues that I face in having to solve when I'm talking to contractors and things like that. In this particular one though, we're talking about the questions that we're going to be asking our customer. This is a relatively short one, but we'll go through a couple of case studies, have a look at that, and then when you come to do your small assessment at the end of the program, it'll be doing a couple of case studies that we've got sampled for you and then submitting those in. You know, basically we want to know what gear you're going to use, what strip you're going to use and things like that. So at the end of it, we will need you to do that because that tells us that you've understood. But there's a link below. Download your paperwork because not only does it give you a bit of an overview, it also is the fact sheet to all of the information that we're going to be talking about now. The case studies are in there, the sample case studies are there. So grab that and we can certainly work from there. So let's get underway. Basically, when contractors are coming to design an installation, the one thing I've noticed is they don't ask. And they don't ask any questions and they run blind all the time about what my customer wants. Do you know what your customer wants? What is it they're looking for? And they don't know. They don't know. And it's up to you. You have to understand what your customer wants, and by doing that you have to ask the questions. You have to understand the environment, what's their expectations, why are they choosing to go this way. All of that you need to understand. If you can't understand it, how are you going to provide a successful installation? And I mean, when we look at the PowerPoint presentation, there's 2 different installations. One is a beautiful garden and the other one is a building. Do you think the questions for those 2 would be vastly different? Sure, but the outcome is equally the same. So let's look at what questions we really should be asking. I've done it in a couple of steps, a step 1, a step 2, and so on, just so you can get your head around why we need to ask these questions. And it may sound difficult, but it's really, really quite simple. And it's about communication. Okay, so we've just walked into a room, we're talking to a customer, and you know, we're going to ask some questions. Okay, so now we've got to what steps are required. Now, like I've said, this may sound difficult, but it's not as hard as you think. It comes down to communicating. Now, I've got Will coming in. Now, Will wants to do some LED strip in the living room of his house. I don't know. That's as much as I know. Now, if someone told me that, I could go off and I could get all sorts of different LED strips and drivers and controllers and make a real big mess of it, right? But I've got Will coming in because I need to ask him a few questions. So come on in, Will.
Hello.
Hey, mate, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Now, I understand you want LED strip in your house. Now, I could run off and I could get all the LED strip, but I don't actually know what you want.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for to install the LED strip? Like, what is it you're looking for?
Well, I'm looking for something that's efficient.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of downlight, so I'm sort of looking for something that's new and something that looks good.
Yeah, so you're looking for a bit of effect?
Yes.
A bit. So, okay, so now when you're looking for effect, where are you looking to install it?
In a copper ceiling.
Oh, okay, so you've got a bit of a drop-down ceiling, so you want it to light up onto the roof?
Yes, correct.
So, okay, that sounds pretty awesome. Pretty big lounge room, I'm liking that. And what kind of effect? Are we just looking for a white, or are we looking for colours?
An RGB.
So you want the full colour spectrum and things like that?
Yeah.
Awesome. And how do you want to control it?
Via remote.
You want to use a remote?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Will, I'll go away, I'll design something up for you, and as soon as I've got something designed, I'll come back, we'll have a chat, and I'll show you some samples of LED strip. All right, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As you saw, we just had Will in here, and I've asked him a series of questions. Now, it didn't take me long to ask him those questions, but now I've got a really clear picture on what Will requires and what he needs. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I've asked the questions, and now I have an idea. I'm going to go and have a look at the LED, types of LED strip that are available and how much. I'm going to measure up the coffer ceiling so I know what lengths I need. I'm going to do the power consumption on the strip, and I'm going to have a look at how I'm going to power the strip. Do I need a normal power supply? Do I need a dimmable power supply? Now, he's already asked me, he wants a remote control, so that immediately takes out a dimmable power supply and gives me just a normal power supply because I'm going to have a controller. So I'm going to be using, he wants RGB, so I'm going to use the Wi-Fi RF controller straight away. So straight away in my mind, I'm putting the whole process together, and it comes down to the questions that I asked. Now, the other thing that you could think about, if he still wanted the remote control, but he only wanted white LED, we can still use the 1009 Farwi because it's a Wi-Fi RF controller, but we'll just use the 4 channels to control the white colours of the LED strip. Now, that would mean then, going back to what we had previously, if I was to do that, at this point in time with RGB, we will be using that controller. Okay, but if I was to have white, I would just simply use that controller. Now what that does is tells the Farwi that doesn't matter what colour or what's in there, control it all as one colour strip. And that's what that remote does. Every channel ends up being controlled as one colour, whereas that one, every channel has a colour. So bear that in mind when you're doing it. But that simple conversation gave me all the information I needed. Now I can go into Will's house, here's a quote, confidently give him a quote, tell him how it's going to work, advise him where the power supplies are going to go and things like that. Again, it comes down to that level of communication. If you don't ask those questions, you're not going to know, and you're going to be guessing the whole way through. Okay, so we've sort of organised all the gear that we want and things like that. We've got to pair up our remote with a controller with a remote, but we've already got an idea. So let's have a look. The one thing we have to do now is, Will doesn't know what the equipment's like, so we have to go through. So we have to have a bit of an understanding on the equipment. So when we look at our PowerPoint, and also have a look in your paperwork, we've got a list of all the products that Emelec have that relate to LED strip. So when we start from the top, we've got the LED controllers. So we can select our controller. We've got the LED strip, so we can select our strip. And then we've got our power supplies, so we can select our power supplies. It's really important that we get a good understanding of the equipment we're about to use, and all the information is right there. So let's have a look. From what we've got there, we can actually go into Will's house and we can tell him what he's going to get and how he's going to get it. But I've done a sample case study here. So this sample case study is an actual call that we took here in the office. Mrs. Jones wants RGB under the kitchen bench and in behind her overhead cupboards. She wants to control it via remote control, wall mounted as 2 separate zones. The details are as follows. So we've gone through and we've asked all the questions. The kitchen bench is 4.7 metres long. We know she needs an RGB. She wants it high output. She wants it quite bright. We've worked out the power supply. Then we know we need a Wi-Fi RF controller. Then we need a wall-mounted controller because we want 2 zones. Okay, so we're not using a handheld remote. We're using a wall-mounted controller. So when we look at the overhead cupboards, they're 3.4 metres long. So what do we require? Well, we don't need another wall controller because we're going to use one of the zones of that wall controller to manage and to control the other. So which means we've still got to have another Wi-Fi RF controller, and it has to be set as a master. So just on that point, when you get a 1009 Farway, you can set it by a simple jumper as a master or a slave. If that was to be set as a slave, whatever happened with the kitchen bench, 15 seconds later this would match up, and then every time you change the colour on the kitchen bench, straight away this one would change. Okay? If they're both set as masters, that means they are two individual systems, but they can be classed as Zone 1 and Zone 2 on our wall controller, okay, which is really important. So, by the time we've got all of that, as you can see in this instance, we've treated the two locations as separate areas controlled by the one controller, right? This could have been done as a single zone, simply by making the 1009 Farway, one as a master and one as a slave. We could have used one zone. That means the colours that were picked on one would automatically go to the other. But sometimes people like them as two zones purely for that effect. They can have two colours operating. So that's a sample case study. And that is an actual one that was installed here. The one thing you'll notice though, the one thing we did do is we worked out our total load. And our total load, for example, on the kitchen bench was 67.68 watts. Why did we need that? Purely because we have to size the power supply according to that wattage. Okay? Having a power supply that is smaller than that wattage will just cause the power supply to fail. We'll put extra strain on our Wi-Fi RF controller, right? And it will cause the LED strip to eventually fail due to low voltage, over temperature, so on and so forth. So everything has to be sized right, and it takes a matter of minutes to actually do that. Okay, a simple design, or even the most complex of designs, should be able to be done within half an hour to 3/4 of an hour. A simple design is a matter of minutes. You've just got to think of it from start to finish. So another case study, this one we've also done. This was in a conference centre. And once again, we went through, we drew the pictures, we worked out where we were going to feed it. It's all there. The bold circles indicate the point of connection and the arrows indicate the strip that we've connected to that actual point. So this is quite a large job, and we've got them all set as masters, except for the two coffers, which are set as master and slave. Okay, so which means then it'll just operate and become unified because they're both in the one room. All right, so have a look at that one and see what you think, because as we go over, here's all the gear that we've arranged for that actual case study number 2. Now, as much as we've done these case studies, one of the issues that we have to face is voltage drop. Voltage drop is still got to be considered, even though they are quite simple installations. All right, because going back, if we just go back to case study number 2, we know that the controller is going to be some distance away, and by what they've said there, we know there's going to be some distance because of the way the coffers are designed, and you know they're quite large, 4.5 meters by 5 and 4.5 meters by 5. They're quite some distance apart. They're quite large, so a minimum length of cable there's going to be about 5 to 6 meters. So we need to take into consideration voltage drop. Otherwise, we'll have a differing colour on the ceiling, because they're coffers, we'll have a differing colour on the ceiling where we've got a voltage drop issue. So if we have one half at 12 volts and then we have the other half running at 10.9 volts, this half will be bright, this half will be very dull, and it will be very noticeable. So do your voltage drop calculations. It takes a matter of minutes, and it just means that you know that when I install this, I'm going to be right on. If you're within a metre of it, you don't have to worry. If you're within 3 metres of it, you don't have to worry. But if you think you're going to be outside of 3 metres, do your voltage drop calculation, because it'll save you a lot of heartache later on down the track. And in a lot of these cases, you can get to the cable once, you can't get to the cable once you've installed it. Also, in that situation, always solder. Solder all your connections, because it's up in a coffer, it's in a high dust area, You don't want it to get damaged. You don't want to have to get up there and squeeze your hand in, because normally a coffer's only about 100 mil down from the ceiling. All right, so just make sure you solder all the terminations. Okay, we do explain here how to do voltage drop. Again, it appears in your paperwork again. All right, so just be mindful on all of that. The formulas are all there. Please, it's one of the biggest issues that we face, and one of the biggest questions that I get is, it's dull, and when you do actually take it out there and you put your meter on it, you've got about 8 volts, you know why it's dull straight away, but it could be a big issue to fix. Also, in your paperwork, we have the wiring diagrams again, okay? Because it doesn't matter what you do, we've got to make sure you've got the wiring diagrams so that you don't get held up on site. And the other thing is, we don't want you to feel like you don't know what you're doing. Now, here's the other thing. Here is when you download this, you've also got to complete these. Okay, what we'll be looking for is the answers. We want you to go through and complete this. This is a case study for you to complete. Design it, draw it up, make sure you've got all the details, then work out the gear. You've got the list of all the equipment in there, so make sure you know what you want. If there's any aluminium extrusions or anything like that required, just make a note of it. Go onto our website, all the information's there. But there is 2 there. So you've got the domestic kitchen, which if you have a look may have been done. Then you've got the nightclub. Okay, so please make sure you go through and you complete those, and then you've got the conference centre. There's 3 of them there. Okay, so they need to be completed. Then once you get the answers, you just go online and fill the answers in, send them through, and then that's the completion of that course, and then you'll get your certificate to say you completed. This section here is where most people fail. Okay, this is where most people struggle. If you can understand how to do a design, and if you can understand what's required for you to make a successful design and how to allocate the equipment, you're going to be leaps and heads. And also, you're probably going to save yourself some money, because going back to fix things, going back to try and sort issues out, it's costly, right? And whilst it's not a product failure, it's coming straight out of your pocket. So let's have let's spend the time, do the designs. We're at the end of the phone. If you've got any issues or any problems, get them done, get them across to us, and yeah, we'll certainly see from there. All right, so in conclusion, we've gone through everything you need to know, the questions to ask, the steps that are required, understanding what equipment is available and what equipment is required, a sample case study. We've gone through the other case study. We've got the voltage drop. Obviously, we're going to be voltage drop, and then you've got your case studies in here, which you have to complete. Okay, so please feel free to give us a call if you need any assistance. But like I said, the resources and tools are on our website. You've already joined MWorld. Get other people to join MWorld. Get them onto these courses. And don't forget, our on-site warranty has changed. It's now, you don't have to register the site anymore. Basically, just go through, lodge your claim if you have a fault or a failure. Lodge the claim, provide your purchase receipt or a receipt, an invoice or something like that to show where you've installed or purchased the gear, and also add your any lifting equipment that you may have used, the receipt or the invoice for that. All right, well, for me, thank you very much. And that's the end of that one, but please get those designs into us.